Well, hey everybody, and welcome to today's webinar. Pretty excited to be with you teaching around this stuff. When I look back at this one being now my fourth economic downturn that I've had to run businesses through. I remember the first one where I literally stuck my head in the sand and hoped I could just hunker down through it. Biggest mistake I ever made, I think, in the early stages of my business career. As the second one came around, I took action, not that much action because I didn't really know what I was doing, but I did stuff. And then the third one, it was like full on, full tilt, know exactly what I'm doing. This one, full on, full tilt. And it's a really interesting economic downturn. Now, I want to preface what I'm teaching here today with, I don't want to, it's hard to talk matter of factly about this crisis, given that it is a human crisis, a health crisis, and not just a financial crisis. So please forgive me if at any point I get a little too matter of fact about this thing, but I'm trying to stay as sensitive as I can to all of that. That being said, this crisis economically is actually, let me just put my webcam on so you can see. I'm working from here at home in my home office, as I'm sure many of you are now. It's a little crazy to be working from the home office, but hey, that's the way the world is right now. But so if the kids run in, please forgive me. We have 5 kids that we're homeschooling right now, so this has been a real interesting time for us. 9 companies, and out of my 9 companies, 8 of them are still running, full staffed, have not laid off anyone. One of them, we have a restaurant here at the Wynn Casino, and we had to furlough everyone basically on full shutdown of the casinos, so we had no chance to do anything there. But luckily enough, we got the PPP for that one, so that'll keep our staff on board. And one of our companies, a commercial cleaning company, is actually in boom times right now, so they're struggling with keeping up and recruiting and training and all those sorts of things. And so yeah, and that brings me to the point of the difference in this downturn. If you go back and you look at from 9/11, from the housing bubble, the internet bubble, the previous the junk bonds bubbles, all of these bubbles were financially created in most cases, except for 9/11. But this one is a health related one. Now, the interesting thing about it is that approximately a third of businesses are in boom right now. Approximately a third of businesses are doing such massive numbers that they've never dreamt of before. McDonald's is setting records, grocery stores setting records, delivery companies, Amazon, oh my goodness, they're trying to they've changed their website to slow people down on buying, for goodness sake. If you take a look at like one of our clients who is a conveyor belt company, literally booming, they cannot keep up with the demand. Amazon's asked them to bring online more centers much faster. So many companies that are doing so brilliantly well. Then you've got the middle group, which is companies like many of mine that have pivoted and had to make a shift to just stay in business and keep their head above water. And interestingly enough, most of them are getting the government assistance in some way, shape, or form. And I know that a lot of people didn't get it because it ran out, but it looks like it'll get refunded today. I saw an interview with Schumer this morning looking like that'll get funded again today. They said yesterday, but again, who knows? You and I are seeing the same news on that stuff. And then you've got 20 to 30% of businesses that are in just full shutdown mode. They're in many cases, like our restaurant, we're not really losing a lot of money, but we're not making anything either. Our rental has been suspended, and things like that. Now you're getting banks coming to the party of suspending mortgages for up to 3 or 6 months just by clicking buttons, basically. And then you're getting people who have been laid off are actually getting a pay rise in about half of the situation. So people who are under 45,000 a year before are now getting a pay rise to be on welfare when you consider the doubling of welfare and the addition of the 1,200 plus 500 per kid and so on and so forth. Now, all of these things added together, and I know there's a group of businesses caught in the middle that are not getting the PPP or they're not getting the level of assistance they need. And I believe that the word of doubling down on the CARES Act is still around. The word of adding $2 trillion in infrastructure spending is still there, but they've pulled that back, so they've got that as a trump card to play later in the game, I believe. Anyway, that's sort of the thing. But What I'm seeing though is, unlike 2008, our most recent one, where it was an all hands lost money, everybody went down. There was no one that massively benefited from it other than basically insolvency attorney. If you're an attorney, you made money out of that sort of thing. But other than that, it was like tough times for everybody. In this case, and the stock market is showing this with only a 20-point, it dropped massively. And then they realized, hang on a sec, earnings reports out of McDonald's are going to be amazing. Earning reports out of these companies are going to be so massive, it's not funny. So we've had to see a pivot, and there's a different understanding of the market. So hopefully with that preface, what I'm going to teach you here today, and if you haven't already had a chance, I want you to think of this. In fact, Jared, would you mind putting up the links of my webinar from 6 weeks ago when this thing first hit, and then the one from like about 3.5 weeks ago where I'd changed, okay, we knew we're in lockdown, what do we got to do? And then you'll see, if you haven't seen those webinars, I want you to take a look at them, because I want you to see the distinct difference in where we're at as a phase of this thing. Personally, I believe that this will be one of the shortest downturn economies for two main reasons. Number one is everything I just said there, that, we've got a third of businesses booming, about a third that have learned to pivot. In some markets, it's 40-50% that have learned to pivot and find a way to make money. Like actually one of our clients the other day, this was an interesting one. They a steel company basically, and they used to build mezzanine levels into houses and office buildings and warehouses and things, and so they did a lot of steel products, and that business just dropped immediately, and all of a sudden they're like, well, what the heck are we going to do? And they turned to building dumbbells and barbells and weights for people, like how, and they're making enough money to keep going. So the pivots that we're seeing out there from business owners, and some of these things are going to last for a long, long time as to what they're going to be able to make money from an extra type of business for a long, long time. And hopefully by the end of today, they always say that about 85% of people that attend a seminar do nothing. And I would say that my goal today is that 100% of you do something, even if it's you just take up a connection with one of my coaches for one of our free sessions. Because the coaches that brought you on this are here to help. That's all we've been doing. We've literally all been doing 5 hours a week of pro bono work, working with business owners that need help and need assistance. And I'll share with you in a little while how you can get assistance from the coaches from that. So the second reason I believe that we're going to get through this a lot faster is the government. Now, the government is doing an amazingly good job of financially helping. I know they're a little bit backed up. Obviously, that's going to be the case when you get this amount of influx of people looking to be assisted and that sort of thing. But with that level of money being thrown into the market, we're not seeing a tightening of money yet. I'm sure the banks will start to tighten money at some point in the near future. But that being said, the Fed actually came out and said to Fannie and Freddie, you're allowed to be a little bit looser in how you lend for mortgages at this point in time. So that's that's an interesting one in and of itself with real estate. So seeing that stuff happening, and the 2 trillion plus, I believe a lot more coming after that, pumping all of that money into the economy. Now you got to think about it, and just a simple little one to think about where money is being made right now. How much money do you think is being made by companies building these hospitals in markets around the country, the standalone in the massive centers where they're putting in the oxygen flow, they're building the piping, someone's buying this piping, the government's buying the pipes from a piping company that's making a ton of money right now. And you've got to keep thinking of this as we go through this. And this is where it brings me to understanding that your first job is to come up with a plan to survive it. That's your first job. So back 6 weeks ago when I first started teaching this, I said you need a 90-day survival plan. You need to survive 90 days. And then now you need to start pivoting and saying, okay, now I need a plan for the next 90 days where we come out of this thing. So that's what this is all about. Let me turn off this and get to the training with you. So what are the things that we got to start doing now if we're going to pivot and we're going to make this through this? By the way, the second reason I think the government's going to get us there is I don't think that we're going to be allowed to go into an election without a positive economy. I don't think the president's going to want this election to be a negative economy. I think he's going to hold back a few trump cards and play, sorry using the word, but play them as we get closer to November. I think that's going to be the case, and summer is almost here as well. So what do we got to do first? First things first, you got to take control of your communication. You got to be controlling your communications, firstly with your people. Your team members must be seeing you and hearing from you daily at this stage. They must be getting a new focus. Don't let them focus on the negatives. Give them a positive focus. Give them a goal. Give them somewhere to go. Go back to your vision. Jared, could you actually put a link to my video of the Vision of Action Coach that we put out to all of our team, so that everyone can see how we've pivoted our message to make sure that that's there for everybody to understand that one. What we have to do as leaders of our organization is we need to be seen. We need to be seen. Video is a big part of it. Obviously, Zoom calls, Skype calls, Microsoft Teams, whatever methodology you're using. You know, and you need to sit back and say, okay, how are we doing this? How are we actually giving our people a focus daily, weekly? What's the one thing we want them all focused in on? What's the goal now? Where are we moving to? And keep them focused on that goal, keep them excited by that goal, and keep them, because otherwise, if you don't give them a focus, they focus in on the negatives. It's easy to get on Facebook or whatever and find all of the negatives that are going on out there, the conspiracy theories, all of this stuff that is just crazy thinking out there in the world. And we don't need that. We need the focus right now. We need to be focused on survive and then thrive. If you can understand that as a leader, your strength, the way you stand in front of your people gives them the confidence to come to do their job. And I know in a virtual world that's harder, but still what we've got to do is be the positive light. We've got to be that person with the most enthusiasm that we're going to get through this. We're going to get through it. I'm not sure how, I'm not sure where, but I know we're going to get through all of this stuff. By the way, I will have time at the end of this for a few questions. So if you do have any questions, please feel free to type them in and make sure that we get to that. Now, as we get further and further down the road on this and we start thinking about how our leadership has been perceived, and if I can be really blunt about this, I was talking with one of our clients up in Washington State, and here he is working 12, 15-hour days to keep his company alive and keep all of his staff on board. And I asked him a question. I said, do all of your people know what you're doing and know how hard you're pushing yourself to keep this alive? And he said, I don't know. I haven't told any of them. I said, buddy, you've got to be telling them this stuff. You have to be conveying to them what's actually going on so that they know. Because if they don't know what you're doing to help them out, then it's very hard for them to really understand the level of energy you want. If you're doing great leadership right now, your people are thanking you. Your people are saying, thank you, boss, for keeping us in business. Thank you for, making sure we're a strong company. Thank you for doing all these things. That's where it's got to be at this point in time. Now, if you're going to understand this, not just communication with your employees, but all your people, meaning your customer base, you need to be communicating with your customers far more often now than you were before. Pick up the phone. Don't just email them. Don't just message them. Get on the phone to all of your customers. Get on the phone to all of your past customers. Have a chat with them. Just check in on them. See how they're doing. Also, I like the idea of doing one-on-one calls with my employees. I know I've done that. I now have my HR managers doing one-on-one calls with all the employees, just checking in on them, because fear can creep in. Isolation can creep in, especially if we're on virtual business right now. And, these are some of the facts. And even if your business is in that boom category, you need this high level of communication because there's change, there's more happening. And when there's high change, you need high communication with all of your people. Make sure you're focused in on communicate. So that's a big part of it with all of them. Suppliers, bankers, be in communication with all of them. Don't just wait and hold back. Be proactive with your communication. Always proactive with it. Here's why. In the change cycle, what we see happening with people is that the change happens at a different rate. Now, most of us here on this call have been through the initial shock and then it's not really happening. And then there's anger and frustration. And we see that. I see you guys in the Carolinas having a few people taken to the streets with anger and frustration. It's like, come on, people, come on. We don't want to get into that depression. See, here's what happens. Why a coach works is they come and grab you in denial and they push you straight to problem solving. They grab you before anger and frustration and push you to problem solving. Leap past that acceptance, leap past all of that negativity stuff and get straight to solving the problem. And I think that it's a big part of it. Now, here's the thing. You as a leader, yes, you can come to us and we'll do that with you, but you as a leader need that with your people. You need to move your people to problem solving. You need to move your employees to that problem solving. And that's where your communication levels kick in. We can't have them in that cycle of downwards before they get there. We need fast change. We need fast action. If we're to survive and thrive through this thing, we need to be there, because we need, when the markets open up, when everything opens up for business, and I know your governors are holding it pretty close to their chest as to when they're reopening, but it's going to be sometime in May is the guess for everybody. Whether it's the 1st of May, you guys have till the 20 what something to before you know, but somewhere in that market we're going to start to see opening, with Georgia starting to open and all these things. You know, who knows? But here's what we do know: change is the part of it. So I want to take a look at the change of your business. Now, my formula for change is a simple one up there. D times V plus F has to be greater than R. Let me give you the definition of those so you can write them down. D is for dissatisfaction. V is for vision plus the first steps, okay? So dissatisfaction multiplied by vision plus the first steps has to be greater than resistance. Now, resistance to change is normally high in normal times. In times like now, there's very little resistance to change. People are like, either I change or I lose my job. Either I change or my business is out of business. Either I change or, you know what I mean? We've got to make shifts and changes in our world at this point. So when we see that, then we know that the change is going to happen much faster. And what I'm finding is, depending upon your business model, you're going to have to either make hundreds of small, tiny changes to stay virtual and stay in business. And those small changes will add up and it will multiply out to get you to where you need to be. Or like one of my businesses, when I take a look at my business, it was a food truck business. It still is a food truck business, but now it's pivoted. Our food truck business this time of year is massive for us. All of our trucks are at festivals and fairs and concerts and all of these amazing events. Well, they're all gone. So instantly we had to pivot. We had to say, well, what are we going to do to stay in business? Now we have a commercial kitchen and we're like, okay, let's turn to helping our community first and foremost. What can we do? Because people, remember at the beginning, people couldn't get groceries. So we turned to doing family meals. Okay, we're doing family style meals, $6 and $7 a person. We're just going to do that, and we're going to do it in a massive way. So any family that can't get groceries, we've got your back. Because being a wholesale business or being a commercial business, we can buy from the wholesalers and they'll deliver whatever we want whenever we need it. There was no shortages at the wholesale level of this stuff. So here we are creating this massive pivot for people. And all of a sudden, then once we'd got our business to a point where we could survive, then it was like, okay, how do we get the trucks back out there now on the road in places where we're going to make enough money to pay all the wages and keep people in business? How do we now turn this into an opportunity now that we've learned how to survive? So we had to massively change in the beginning. Now we're having to add and add and add and keep running, I guess, to keep ahead of the game with this thing. So there's 4 areas then, if we're going to change our business model, that we need to be thinking of. And if you haven't seen it, my latest book called Pulling Profits Out of a Hat, if you can throw the link up to the bookstore for everyone for me, please, Jared, either maybe give them Amazon and our bookstore so that they can get it wherever is easiest for them. But in Pulling Profits, I go through 4 things that are the core part of a strategy for a business. They're the core parts of how a business's strategy works. So in this time, the first thing we got to look at is opportunity size and marketability. We've got to look at this. Opportunity size, meaning how big is the market size for this? Because you don't want to pivot to a small market. You need to pivot to a large market. You need to pivot to something where people are, there's plenty of money going out in that sort of an area. And for us with that one, it was like groceries. People can't get groceries. They're dying to get groceries. How do we fix that stuff? How do we change up what we're doing? Marketability. In your industry, it's like that steel company. They looked and they said, well, we're a construction company. No, you had to think bigger. We're not a construction company, we're a steel company. What is selling well in steel right now? Now they've also pivoted. They're helping build framework for these temporary hospitals. So there's so much going on with this sort of stuff as to what else can be done. What is selling in your field right now? It doesn't have to be your old business model. It could be within your field of business. What's selling a lot right now? Where is the person that's thriving in what you're doing, and change it. Like for us, the food truck business, we had to say, no, we're in the food business. So how do we get food to people? Well, forget that we're in the food truck business. We just got to get food out there in some way, shape or form. You know, in our food trucks, our food is all high end and quite high priced. We had to go the other way. High end, high priced food isn't selling right now. It's that get me food so I can feed my family type stuff. Then you got to take a look at the leverage, okay? How do you get a customer once and get them to keep coming back forever? That's where in a business, the product or service that we're selling, we want it to be on a repeat business. We want it to be on something where we can get a subscription-based business or anything of that nature, so that once we get the customer, once we do all the work to get the customer, we keep them coming back over and over and over again. And that to me is a big part of the success of any business model. So if you've got to pivot, make sure that you pivot to something where it's a repeat business style customer, not just a one-off and then they're gone. You don't want to have to be doing one-offs time after time. Next thing we look at is scalability. Is it something that can grow fast? And that's where, for us, when we looked at I'll just stay with the food truck just for a second, and then we'll go to other examples. But for us, we'll look like, how do we scale this thing? Well, we can't have a whole menu. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to do one meal a night. That's the meal for the night. This is the menu for the night. First night was like spaghetti and meatballs. Friday, we do a fish fry. But that's the meal. How many do you want? That's the deal. Tuesdays is Taco Tuesday. It's just, this is the dish. That's what we're doing so that we could scale it. Otherwise, if we're trying to do 20 different menu items, there's no way we can scale that speedily and grow it to get hundreds and hundreds of customers in a week type thing. So we had to look at what's going to be scalable and what's not scalable, and that made it. So look at those 4 areas, read the book to get more detail on that one, or get the audio book of it, whichever way you want to do it. But that's what we need to. Now, by the way, everyone gets this sent out to them afterwards. Jared, would you do me a favor? Would you make sure all of these links are put in the email that goes out to everybody, please? That would be very helpful for everyone, especially those who are signed up for it but couldn't watch it live. All right, step 3. One of the things we have to know is that there is no going back. There is no going back to what it was before. Virtual is the new normal, okay? Let's just think about some simple things about what the new normal is. Yes, technology is going to be a part of it. Yes, work from home. See, think about this. Is construction industry going to have to change? Yes. Why? People are going to want home offices going forward. They're going to want a house built with a home office. Commercial buildings. We're going to have companies, like I was talking with my CFO of one of our companies the other day and said, hey, how much office space do you think we're going to not need because people are going to want to stay on virtual work from home? How many people do you think are going to want to stay virtual work from home? And we can employ a hot desk system for when they do come into the thing. Then I'm sitting there talking with our restaurant business saying, okay, what are we going to have to do? Because people don't want to touch the door. When they go to the bathroom, they don't want to touch the door handle. When they go, we got to go everything contactless. Our front door has to be replaced. So it's not a door people grab the handle and pull it open. Our front door needs to be replaced. What are we going to do with menus? Now we've gone and got a QR code so that when people walk in the door, they can actually scan the QR code and pull the menu up straight on their phone, because they don't want to be touching menus in a lot of cases. We have to go contactless. How do we do this? And what do we do? There's so many different things that we're having to think of, that this is the new normal. And we have to be, as people, thinking this way, because everyone thinks, oh, when will we go back to normal? Well, the mindset of humans has shifted. The mentality, the way people are thinking has shifted based on this. So in a virtual world, how do you manage people? In a social distancing world, how do you manage people and thinking of this sort of stuff? Well, from a management perspective, I sit down and I say, how are we actually doing that, getting the most of our humans? And we've always, in all of our companies, at the end of the day, every day, made people write a list of what they're going to do tomorrow. It's part of our management structure. But when I sit down and I start looking at that, now it's vital that people do that. Our huddles in the morning that we used to have, now they are vital to have a huddle on Zoom every morning. We've added a midday huddle, which is an all-team huddle, which all we do is talk about the good news. All we do is talk about what's great. And boom, everything was there. And then we have an afternoon huddle where everyone reports in their numbers for the day. What did they get done? Of their 6 goals for their job of the day, how did they do on their 6 goals? Making certain that we're doing this stuff day in and day out so that we get people on a management track. Every Thursday, we're doing one-on-ones with every single employee to go through, what is your list for the week? How are you doing with it? Where are you at? What's the process? We call that a LION meeting. LION stands for, so L-I-O-N, LION stands for last week, meaning the current week. What are your numbers? What's your list? How have you gone with that? And by the way, we add in another thing. We get them doing a daily list, but on a Friday, we get them to do 2 lists. One is for Monday and one is for the whole of next week, what needs to be achieved for the whole of next week. So we go through that list as the last week thing. Then I stands for issues. What issues came up this week? And there's been plenty of those with going virtual, obviously. Opportunities that we go to, what are the opportunities that you've found? And we ask every employee in our company every week, what opportunities did you find this week to help the company make more money? We're asking it of every single employee every single week because they're finding stuff and they're coming up. And I have to be honest that there were some ideas that my team had probably a year ago or 2 years ago that at the time I thought, oh, these are just dumb, crazy ideas. No, we're not doing that. Guess what's happening now? We're doing them and they're working. So, you know, maybe the crazy, stupid ideas from a year ago are some of the best ideas in this current market. You know, one of the things that I look at and say, if you go back to 2000 and say, okay, that's when like Uber was created from 2008. Airbnb was created from 2008. Instagram launched in 2010. All of these amazing companies that get launched during a crisis because of the fact that the market is shifting and there's so many things that you would never have tried before, but now you're trying. So I stands for issues, O opportunities, N for next week. So on a Thursday, we have that half-hour meeting with each team member and go through it. What you doing? Where are you at? What are you doing? Where you at? You know. I think that the biggest thing about virtual that I mentioned it before is you've got to build community. How are your meetings doing? Because if anyone starts to feel alone out there, they start to their level of productivity drops. So we've got to keep people connected. We got to keep people in, especially if you've got people that are on the DISC profile, high I's and high S's, where they're real people oriented. You know, some of the people have gone to work from home and they're like, this is the best thing ever. No one annoys me at all, ever. This is perfect. And other people have gone to work from home going, there's no one here to talk to. There's no one for me to see and that sort of stuff. So you got to balance that. And your meetings have to be communication sessions. Your meetings have to be about building community and getting people to talk and communicate with each other. And then finally, obviously, in your virtual world, what does your reporting look like and how much planning are you doing? You got to do more planning and more reporting in this time, more communication, as we said earlier. And let's take a look at what happens when we do that or if we don't do that, okay? So when the effects hit business, somewhere around March is where it sort of happened, is where everything was, because, you know, the US and most markets were on a boom at the start of the year. And then we start hearing about this China and Italy, and then all of a sudden we take a drop. And, you know, some businesses, when we went into lockdown, they were into panic mode. Others went into plan mode. If you went into plan mode, what you saw is you might have had some sales drop or you might have saved a bunch of the customers. I know for us in some of our businesses, we saw a lot of our customers who, in one of our companies, the cleaning company, where we had customers who came in and said, listen, gymnasiums, for instance, we're just shut. We can't afford to pay you guys. And we're like, fine, we will just clean for you once a week. We're going to come in and do it. And don't worry about the money. We'll sort it out at the end. And the level of those people coming to us just saying, you're going to do that for us? Dang, that you guys are the best ever. We will make it up to you. What if we just pay you half now until we get through this thing? And then later on, if we can, we'll pay it back to you. And just keeping those customers happy. And interestingly enough, by doing that, one of those companies, the brother of one of the guys who said it, he runs this massive office tower that needed full-on disinfectant cleaning. And he called us and said, listen, you guys were so good to my brother and his gyms. I want you to come and do the full disinfectant cleaning of this massive office tower. And like literally tens of thousands of dollars in cleaning contract just because we took care of the people that were there. Now, as these restrictions ease, here's what's going to happen. And this is why I say to you with your humans in your organization, try and keep as many of them as you can. If you have to furlough some, furlough all of them at the same time. Don't, do one here, one there, because then everyone starts worrying about their job. If you got to furlough them, give them at a specific time frame, a specific date, put them on furlough, and this is when you're coming back if you have to, because you're going to need them when you come through this thing. You're going to need them when you come out of it. That's good quality leaders in this time and not throwing their people under the bus. Good quality leaders are keeping them if they can. And now with government assistance, if you've got it, there's no reason to not keep those people if you can. Now, here's the thing. As these restrictions, you got to be ready to run. You got to be ready to go hard and go fast as we come out of this thing. There's a pent-up demand that's out there. See, if you take a look at it, I'm saying that we need to sprint when we come out of this thing. The level of business that's going to be there. For instance, one of my clients I was chatting with the other day, hairdressing salons. Literally, he is in the process of recruiting right now so that when they open up, he has an extra person on the front desk who they're not a hairdresser. So every hairdresser is cutting. He's got an extra person to sweep the floors. So every hairdresser is just cutting. He's got an extra person to do the phones. So every person is just cutting. He's now out there. He's literally just put up auctioning. He is auctioning off the first week's hairdressing appointments. So that if you want to be in on first day, you get to pay whatever you want to pay. But those who pay the most get first day. Those who pay the next most, and so on. And he's saying to his customers, you know, we want you all back in some way, but we're not having fights over who gets in first. This is the way we're going to do it. And so you got to sit there and look at it and say, now, if you're in the middle category, this is the thing you got to remember. There's a lot of businesses in your industry that just hunkered down. They shut down. They just went to ground. They're not doing any marketing. They're not doing any extra work. Those companies are going to lose customers when we open up. If you're not prepared to run, you get caught flat-footed in this thing, then you lose out, because when the market reopens, it's going to reopen, okay? And we got to be there ready to take on customers, even if other people are unprepared. We got to be ready for that thing. Now, and actually, Steve, would you mind putting your connection details in the chat room for everybody? If you have a coach you're already working with right now, or whichever action coach brought you on this meeting, please get back with them immediately. They have a system for getting you into what pivot points you need. They have a system for getting you to be prepared for the reopen of this thing, to look at your marketing, to look at all of that sort of stuff. And if you don't have someone, please, our CEO for the Carolinas, Steve Brock, is on here. Steve, if you can just throw your connection details, your email and your phone in there. Perfect. Thank you. If you don't have someone to chat with, please email Steve. I'm going to make sure that every one of you gets a free session at the end of this that needs it. And you can choose 1 or 2 different sessions. So there's a 20-minute session. There's a 2-hour session. And just connect with Steve. If you just want to email him now and say, hey, I need one of those free sessions, or send him a text message now, I'm sure Steve will be able to take care of getting that in place for you. Now, if we're sitting here and we're saying, okay, I need to have that plan. Well, this is why. Let me show you where we're at in this whole process, all right? And this happens, and it's a little different in this one because we've had to go lockdown than previous economic slowdowns. But when we went into lockdown, here's what needed to happen, both from a personal side and a business side. If you want to take a screenshot of this, fine. Otherwise, we'll be sending it to you in a recording as well. But then we're in that middle phase, and we're in, we got to get people trained. We got to get them trained into how do you do virtualness? How do you use Zoom? I remember trying to teach the CFO of one of my companies how to use Zoom. It was one of the funniest things that ever existed. The guy is old school, to say the least. Anyway, but what we've got to do is make sure that we're getting ready. We've got to do more marketing in that phase, and I'll get to more on that in just a moment. But now we're in the warm-up, okay? Now we're in that warm-up. We know that we're going to reopen at some point. We got to get our marketing ready. We got to have everything ready for that warm-up and that opening. We know it's coming. We got to be there. So get the plan in play. You've got to spend an hour or 2 or 3 this week to get that plan done now, because when it opens, we're running, and we're running hard. We're going as fast as we possibly can, because we are going to be out in front. We want our name in front of everybody when this thing opens, and we want to make certain that we are the lead dog when this thing opens up. No getting caught flat-footed with this. And so that's why right now is the most important time to be planning where you're going with this thing. Right now is that most important time. So marketing wise, here's the first thing I'm going to say to you. Your message has to be different. Your message must change. I'll give you an example of that. I was watching a TV ad just 3 nights ago, and it's for Rolexes at a local jewelry store. And they haven't changed their ads from before the whole thing, when they're advertising the glamour and the glitz of a Rolex. And I'm like, come on, you guys, you're going to lose people by not changing your ads. Just pull them, if anything, if you can't put up a different ad. And that's a big part of it. So, you've got to make sure that you've changed your message. Like if that company, if I was running it, I would have changed the ads and said, it's tough times right now, and in tough times, people have to change. And we here at XYZ Jewelers, we know there's still birthdays and there's still celebration moments like anniversaries and things. And even though it's tough, we're still here to help, and we're virtual, but we'll find you the gift you need for that special person in your life and that special moment. Even though they can't celebrate with their friends and family like they normally would, we'll still find them. You see how the difference in message? It's going from sell and pitch and do all that to help and be there for you and to assist you in what you need. And I'm sure you've seen some great ads out there, and I'm sure you've seen some of the bad ones, but your marketing message must be different. Like for us at Action Coach, we had to shift. You know, prior to this, it's about grow your business, handle the growth. Are you ready to grow? What are you doing? How are you doing it? Leadership management. Now it's, hey, we're here to help you survive and then thrive. We're here to get you whatever help you need. We're doing 5 pro bono sessions per week with business owners, every one of us in all 80 countries that we do business in. You know, the message has to be different. It can't be that same message that you had before. It must be different. Second thing is marketing has gone virtual and viral. Now, actually, Jared, could you put in the link to, I did a webinar, was it last week, I think, on how marketing has to be different in a virtual and viral world. It's a full hour-long webinar. I won't go into it today, but I will give you this understanding. In the virtual and viral world of marketing, we have to get there faster. What I personally see is this shift has moved the world's virtual viral marketing and virtual viral working 5 to 10 years. So the shift has pushed us 5 to 10 years in advance of where we were before. You know, and people are now accepting doing things virtually. People are accepting doing things in a way that they would never have accepted before. So grab that webinar, watch that one as well, take a look at it and learn from that one as well as to how our marketing must shift. Next point on marketing, you should be doing 3-4 times as much marketing right now, 3 or 4 times, maybe 5-10 times as much marketing right now. But it doesn't need to be massively paid marketing. It can be marketing that just shifts you. Like you could become the expert on something. Like one of our clients who they do asbestos cleanups and mold cleanups. Well, now they've come out teaching the marketplace. They're based in Seattle. And they're out now teaching the marketplace about how they're educating about how to clean, how to disinfect properly. And they say, listen, we've cleaned up the worst things in the world, asbestos, black mold. We're doing all this sort of stuff. To clean properly, you got to do this, this, and this. Here's how our team goes in and does full disinfectants of an office complex. Here's how our team is right now. And they've pivoted. They're now selling full disinfect cleans, and they're keeping their business running. And literally, they're now in recruit mode, hiring more people to do the stuff than they did before. But you don't have to be doing massive spend. You can be doing virtual stuff, viral stuff, educate people, help understand, become that expert. You know, there's so many different ways to do that. Watch that thing. And finally, if you are investing money in marketing, knowing your numbers right now is the most important thing. Knowing what numbers you're having, how much you're putting out, and how much you come in, because marketing really is the purchasing of customers. Marketing is the buying of lifetime customers. If you haven't read my book, Buying Customers, go to the 2.0 version, the updated version, and make sure you read that and understand how we invest to buy customers and what that job of a business marketer really is. Then we flip over to sales. Now, sales right now, and I know it's tough. Marketing and selling right now, it's like I feel for business owners right now because literally people are getting upset with the marketing when, hang on, all I'm trying to do is keep the lights on. All I'm trying to do is keep my staff fed. Don't beat up on me for marketing right now. I'm just doing what I can do to survive and keep the doors open, for goodness sake. And in your sales, it needs to have that level of compassion. You need to be, the tone has to shift, and we need to be so much more in helping them to solve their problems. We really need to be that. We can't be in there with the hard sell, the hard pitch. Even if you're in the business of selling, face masks right now, you still can't be. You've got to be in the help. You've got to be in that compassion mode. Remember, this is not just an economic crisis. This is a human crisis. This is people are actually. This is just beyond measure. The level of sympathy and empathy that needs to be done right now by your salespeople is phenomenal. It is still selling, so you still got to ask questions. You still got to lead them to buy, and you still have to ask for the sale. You still have to do that, but you need to do it in a way that's different. I personally believe that if you're selling based on a purpose, my purpose is to help, my purpose is to assist, my purpose is to get people through this, then your sales will definitely be there. And I had to coach a few people the other day through their mentality of they were just struggling to ask people to buy. Listen, you're helping right now. You're doing the right thing. Help people, but be okay with the fact that you need to make money too. You need to keep your staff fed. You need to do all that stuff too. So be okay with that. But remember, it's going to take longer in this thing. You're building more relationships. See, there's fear and there's doubt and there's all of these things in the market. The sale may take a few extra touches, a few extra days, if before it took you 7 communications to make a sale, it's probably going to take 13 or 14. If before you were doing live presentations, now you've got to get that on video, and you've got to work out how to do virtual presentations, how to do virtual presentations of everything you do. So you've got to move things from being invisible to visible. You've got to change it. Now, video testimonials are going to be more important. Obviously, the use of Zoom and understanding exactly how you sell through that. The use of text messaging is going to go up and be there. The use of all of these communication methodologies is going to go higher. The ratings that you have, the rankings, the Google ratings, your feedback, the testimonials for your company, these are going to be more and more important in a virtual sales world. We can't stay with the old sales world where you could meet them and they could get a feel for you and they could get a trust factor and a handshake and all of that sort of stuff. You know, we're changing, so you've got to build trust in a way that is different. The whole know, like, and trust thing has to now be able to be done virtually. So do you have a virtual introduction of yourself, a video intro of yourself? Do you have testimonials for you as a salesperson, since people can't meet you? Testimonials for the product or service, testimonials for the company. And they need to be on video. They just do right now. They don't have to be massive caliber and quality. They can simply be a Zoom interview where you interview a past customer about stuff and just record that and play that up there. So we've got to get far greater. We've got to be doing a lot more marketing. We've got to do more webinars, more blog posts. We've got to build our SEO, all of that stuff that's on that other webinar. Go watch that and learn from that one. Step 7, we got to look at our customer service. Now, customer service is an interesting one because in a virtual world, these small things you do become massively important. Who was that wrote that book? Patty Lund, Dr. Patty Lund wrote the book. It's called Building a Happiness-Centered Business, but then he wrote a second one called Critical Non-Essentials. Jared, could you find Patty Lund's website for me, please, and put that link in for everybody? The Building a Happiness-Centered Business was great, but the one I want to talk to you about here is about when he talked about critical non-essentials, like things that are not essential, but they're critical if you want to be perceived with great customer service. Like in his dental practice, and that's what he is, he's a dentist by training, and that's what his business is, and he taught the lessons based on his dental practice. When you walk out of the dental practice, they literally give you a bag of sugarless muffins. They bake them on site to give that beautiful aroma of baking in the dental practice instead of that smell of, you know, the dental fluoride and all of that. Ugh. But you've got to go above and beyond. You've got to make it visible, okay? And how you treat your customers right now, whether you know, I was just chatting with one of my partners in one of our other businesses, and he literally said, you know, I've said to some of our customers, you know, pay whatever you can pay. Whatever it is you can pay right now, just pay that, and we'll get through this, and we'll worry about sorting the money out once we get through the other side of this thing. We're not letting you go, and you'll need our help during this. I'm going to make sure I'm here to help you during this and whatever. That level of loyalty building is massive. And if you want to learn more about that, the loyalty, learn my ladder of loyalty. It's in my book, Instant Repeat Business. So jump on Amazon for that one. I've covered that one off. Critical non-essentials I've covered. Repeat business being where the profit is. Listen, keeping your existing customers is what keeps the profit in a business. Repeat business is where profit is. Having to get new customers all the time is not as profitable as keeping your existing customer base. So do whatever you can to keep them. Go back to them. Make sure you're using the phone with them, not just email. Get on the phone, get on Zoom calls with them. Human interaction. Just call them and say, hey, listen, checking in to see how you guys are doing. You know, it's tough times right now. How's everything going? Just that simple phone call. Let them know you care enough to call is a massive part of what changes. Now, working with your own people in your own organization is, as we go through this, we got to understand that our first job, as I mentioned earlier in communication, is get the fear out and turn that into focus. Fear must pivot. Fear must turn into focus. We've got to give them the focus if we want to get the most out of them. Now, management, I've already touched on management, but one of the things that management is all about is measurement. There's got to be new standards. In a virtual world, measuring is far more important than in any other time. Measuring is super important in a virtual world. And so what we have to do in our companies, we have 6 goals for each employee. We have 6 daily goals for each employee, and we measure that to make certain we know at the end of the day what's their performance. You've got to hold them to standards, especially in a virtual world where some people are working totally different hours because they're doing homeschooling as well. And so during the day, they might have 3 or 4 hours off, and then at nighttime, and so on and so forth. So you've got to set those new standards and manage to what that is, okay? Leadership today, see, if I go back, management is about 2 things. Management is about competent, productive people. It's about competency. So you got to train them, coach them, mentor them, lead them. And that can mean micromanagement in the beginning. You've got to build competency in your people. That's part of management. Productivity is the second part of management, which means making sure they know what their job is, measuring their performance levels, keeping communication high. So there's high productivity out of the people, getting them to write their list at the end of every day and going through that list with them in the morning to know what they're going to achieve during the day. Because in a virtual world, that's important. If management is competent, productive people, leadership is about passionate and focused people. So focus is what we first touched on there. Turn fear into focus. Give them a goal. Give them many goals. Give them several goals. We have 6 goals per person per day, but we have overall goals for the company that we measure. And on our daily huddle, we go through it as a team. How did we do today? What did we end up with today? And then the second part of that is passionate people. You've got to give them something to be passionate about, something to feel emotional about. If you go back and watch that video of my company vision that I did, you'll see how we were looking at this is who we are. This is why we do what we do. And knowing who you are and why you do what you do. We celebrate the wins every day. Whenever there's a win, it goes up in the Facebook group, in the WhatsApp group. It goes out there to make sure that everybody is succeeding and everybody's doing phenomenally well. So keep that stuff out there as part of your leadership. Next thing with people, some of the people have got to pivot and move from a cost center to a profit center. We got people that were never in sales before, that they were in our events business. So in our events business, they've moved. They're no longer doing events because guess what? There's no events. Now you're over here, you're helping the salespeople out. You're being their assistant. You're helping them. You know, you're managing their paperwork and stuff so they can be on the phone doing sales all day, every day. Training, oh my goodness, the amount of retraining. Even in our shutdown business, you know, we've had to move to virtual training. In like our cleaning business, had to move to virtual training. When we onboard someone, they're virtually being trained. We've got all videos and all that sort of stuff. If I look at our restaurant business, all of our people that are furloughed and they're being paid through the government program, thank goodness, we've put them on training programs, more customer service training programs, more food training programs, more wine training programs, photographic training programs on how to take photos of people when they want a photo for their social media, camera training programs to learn how to take photos on an iPhone, how to do it on a Google phone, how to do it on all these different things. And finally, with your people, as I said, I believe that it's a 90-day survive and 90 days to get back up to thrive. And so you want to keep as many of them as you can. If you lay them off, you're going to want them back, and maybe they've already gone and got other jobs. So make certain that if you can keep them, you do. It's really sad seeing big companies just laying off people just because they can. And it's like, you know, especially if they're out there flashing around. And that's why it was interesting. There's what was that company, Shake Shack, that gave back their 10 million in the PPP loan. And they say it's not because they didn't need it. No, the backlash, the publicity media storm is not worth that 10 million in a loan. And I can see other companies like Ruth's Chris are getting beat up out there in the market for taking that money when they really should have let it go to the small businesses out there. You know, that's what it's for. So anyway, if you go and build so number 9, mindset. Actually, Jared, I haven't mentioned it, but team, I did a full 10-day free training that if you haven't had a chance to look at it, please take a look at it. It's 10 days. Every day I do a half-hour's training on what you need to do to get through this thing. The first 4 days are about survive. The 6 following days are about thrive. Day 9 on that is all about mindset. Jared, could you give everyone a link to the free 10-day training for me, please? So in mindset, one of the things that works is daily rituals. One of the most important things is something you do every day to get your mind right, whether it's walking the dog in the morning or whether it's doing some form of exercise or whether it's doing, you know, but something to get your head in the space. If you're working from home, do the getting dressed thing. Don't do the work in your pajamas all day thing. That's not a way to build a strong mindset. Keep the learning up, at least a half hour of learning every day. You've got to keep learning day in and day out because that will get you through this because you're coming up with new solutions to solve old problems. This is the biggest one though around the mindset. the biggest shifts in wealth happen when there is a fall in the economy. The biggest shifts in wealth happen when we're in downturn. So keep that in mind. That's where we're at. We're an opportunity for this sort of thing. I've already mentioned that one, finding small wins. I've now taken to 2 days a week of not watching the news. So Saturday and Sunday, I do not watch any news. I don't watch the news briefings. I don't do anything other than just get my head in the game. You know, be that homeschooling 5 kids, running 9 companies. It's, you know, I want my head on right. I got to do my exercise, do my learning for the day, and make sure that my head is in the right spot every single day. I've touched on this one already. It really is this. You want to reopen with a party, obviously not a live party, but a virtual party. You want to reopen with a bang. You want to launch your business back into this thing. Now, if you don't have a survival plan, please immediately text Steve right now. If you don't have a plan to reopen this thing and relaunch, immediately get with your coach, get with Steve, and get this thing doing, because it's urgent now. Reopen is within days or weeks. We need that plan, and we need it immediately. We need it right now. So get with the coach, get with Steve, whoever it is that you can do that stuff. Step 11, this is taking it, and if you've got any questions, type them in now. I will take a few minutes of questions of whatever I possibly can get through. The last point I want to touch on here is that the market right now is in a totally different place than where it's been. We're in economic fall, we know that, but fall is quickly going into winter. People have already realized the fall has happened. Real estate's getting propped up now by Fannie and Freddie. The stock market has held its own. Oil has dropped, but you saw the president today, what he did, 75 billion, I believe it was, barrels of oil into strategic stockpiles, when oil is literally at minus $3 a barrel. They're paying you to take this because they can't store this stuff. It's phenomenal. But that was just one of the massive one. You know, that's phenomenal. So here we are, and we're looking at this stuff, and companies are going to be going out of business that aren't doing what you're doing right now. Companies are going to be gone, so their customers will be up for sale. Maybe even the whole business, one of your suppliers, one of the companies that buys from you, a customer of yours, they'll be up for sale in the next little while, and they will be for massively discounted prices. You've got to start looking at it from this way. You know, I keep looking at it, and I know it feels awful to be saying it this way, but the opportunity in a crisis is massive. I'm not talking the health crisis, I'm talking the economic crisis here, okay? All right, let me take a look at some of the questions I've got right here. Marketing, I'm going to try and skip the marketing ones and help and just lead you to that webinar, okay? If you can grab the link to that webinar rather than trying to answer all the marketing ones here. I spent a whole hour on that one right there. What are some ways a cosmetics company can pivot? I assume, Maki, that you sell online. I assume that you sell through others. I assume that there's so many different ways. I'm hoping you have a database of your past customers where you can go direct to them. If you don't, start working on direct to customer. If you're going through, if you're a wholesale, you got to work on direct to customer right now. You've got to pivot to that sort of thing. The other thing is look at what you can be making. Can you be making sanitizer if you're a cosmetics? I'm not sure if you're a manufacturer, you haven't put that in here, but look at what else you can be making, because you're in the product manufacture business. Look at that sort of stuff. Look at what you can source right now that other people can't. Make certain that you're understanding that side of when the pivot is. Sometimes to pivot, you've got to look at being smaller in your thing. Look at one particular product line that you can pivot and do. Other times you got to open up and say, okay, we're in the steel business. We can make barbells and dumbbells type thing. We can do that sort of stuff where we couldn't do that other thing. Brad, what makes you so confident the market is going to shift? Okay, listen, I'm just telling you, this is my gut feel based on everything I've seen in 4 downturns running my companies through these things, based on what I saw in 08, based on what I saw in the previous downturns. My gut feel is that we're going to move a lot faster than we've ever moved before. And to me, that's a massive part of what we're looking to achieve, is to take this market and move it. I'm very convinced that our government is doing a wonderful job at state level, at federal level, of what can be done based on what is available to them. You know, people say we lost a few weeks early on. Listen, the fact finding that was going on, no one knew what was going to happen with this. Shutting down China, I believe they're doing a good job. Maybe not perfect, and We all know that our president is one of the most optimistic humans that is out there in the marketplace and says some things, I don't know. But here we are, and all of a sudden, just come back. Josh just said we're retail currently. We don't sell. It takes 4 to 6 months to significant investment. No, Josh, you can get on Shopify and you can have a store up and running tomorrow. You can learn Shopify and you can do that tomorrow. Trust me, Shopify is dead easy. I learned it about 2 years ago. It is one of the simplest systems. You can have a shop up on Shopify almost immediately. So get to that. Now, the other thing with retail is contact your past customers. My wife, the clothing store she buys from, literally he called her 2 days ago and said, hey, listen, are you okay if I pick out some clothes and bring them around to you and show you the clothes that I think that I've got right now that you would like to buy? And she's like, sure, I'm happy to help out. Good. That'll be great. You can do so many different things. Get with your coach, Josh, and have that. Make certain that you are sitting there with the people that you want to be with, and make certain that you can. Retail's future is online. It just is. If this pushes you to that faster than you've ever been pushed before, make sure you do. So Josh, text Steve right now. His number is right there in the chat room, or text the coach that brought you on here and get a session booked in immediately so that you can do that stuff. So if I'm sitting here looking at it, the first thing I want you to do is make certain you're working with a coach for that next 90-day plan, survival plan or thrive plan, or a survive and thrive plan if that's what you need. Okay, make certain of that. But I want you to list down out of your notes today, what are the top 5 things you need to do right now? Make certain that right now you are out there doing this stuff. It's phenomenal. I want to thank, before I go, I want to thank all the people that have come on this, because I know that time is most valuable right now. I know that this is something. I want to really thank Steve and all my coaches in the Carolinas. They're working literally 12, 14-hour days right now. They're doing more than they've ever done to help business owners. And I want to thank them for being the ones to step up and put on this webinar and help you. I'm just doing all I can do to make certain that everybody gets there. We've got to look at this sort of thing, and we've got to make certain that as people, we do that. Now, flip that over, take care of yourself. Don't burn yourself out on this thing. You've got to be strong through the whole process. 90 days in and 90 days out, you got 180 days of strength you got to hold up for. So take care of yourself, take care of your friends, take care of your family, and take care of you mentally being strong. You know, right now, we may be apart from each other, but right now we're right here with you in this game with you all day, every day. I hope what we've done here today is helping. I hope that what we're doing right now is getting you across the line. And most of all, I hope that you can transfer this. Please share this recording with your staff, share this recording with your people, with any other business owner friends, all of those links, the links to my free course. Oh, and Jared, if you could also put in there, once you've done the free course, I did a full 30-day course that was it was supposed to launch like 2 weeks ago. We launched it 5 weeks ago because I had the team work all weekend. It's a 30-day course. It was going to sell for $999. During this crisis, we're doing it for $99 because you just have to do the best you can do to help. We'll go back to the original pricing at some point, maybe in a couple of weeks, maybe in a month or so, but it's called 30X. It's 30 minutes a day for 30 days with me to get you my 30 years business knowledge. So if you want 30X, jump on that as well. All of those links are there, but text Steve, email Steve, talk to your coach. We're going to get you through this. And because if we save every business, we save an economy. If we save every business, we save an economy. Help us save every business. Get the word out there. Get people on my free training. All your friends, all the people you network with, all the people at your chamber. Thank you so much for being a great business owner. Thank you for your strength through this thing. Keep going, keep getting through it. Take care and bye for now.